Why would some of the largest investment firms on Wall Street want to own the exact same three-bedroom house you're trying to buy? When people talk about the housing market today, it's almost always framed as a story about interest rates or not enough construction. There's almost unanimous agreement that young families simply got priced out by bad luck. But part of the reason the starter home has quietly disappeared is that some of the most powerful firms in finance made a very deliberate bet that owning your future home would be more profitable than building it. You see, after the 2008 crash, millions of foreclosed single-family homes hit the market at once, and private equity firms recognized something nobody else was positioned to act on. Individual buyers couldn't compete with all-cash offers at scale. Firms like Invitation Homes and Blackstone began buying up entire neighborhoods of foreclosed starter homes, block by block, turning what used to be the first rung of the property ladder into a permanent institutional rental asset. Blackstone's own executives said as much in investor calls at the time, describing single-family rentals as an emerging multi-billion-dollar asset class. And once an entire industry builds its business model around owning starter homes instead of selling them, it becomes almost impossible to reverse. Because these firms aren't just buying homes, they're removing them from the pool of homes a normal family could ever purchase, permanently converting ownership into rent. This is also why every policy proposal aimed at cooling the housing market keeps missing the actual problem. It's not that a correction in institutional buying can't ever happen. In fact, at some point, market pressure or new legislation likely will slow it. But every time local supply tightens, these same firms simply outbid families again. Because unlike a young couple saving for a down payment, an investment fund doesn't need a mortgage, doesn't get outbid on appraisal gaps, and doesn't care if the deal takes 3 years to become profitable. But there's an even more uncomfortable pattern behind why this keeps accelerating. Because in reality, starter homes haven't just become expensive, they've become structurally unavailable. Because when you ask why entry-level inventory keeps shrinking every single year, the answer isn't simply not enough homes get built. It's that a growing share of the ones that do exist never reach an individual buyer in the first place. In some fast-growing metro areas, investors now account for more than 1 in 4 single-family home purchases, and the vast majority of those are the smaller, cheaper homes, exactly the kind a first-time buyer would target. So it's not the housing supply that's fundamentally broken, it's who that supply is actually built for. As long as owning a rental portfolio of starter homes remains one of the most reliable, recession-resistant investments available to institutional capital, that capital is going to keep showing up to every open house alongside you, with a check you cannot beat. And that, more than construction shortages or interest rates alone, is the real reason an entire generation keeps discovering that the starter home isn't gone, it's just not for sale to them anymore.